Kiran sir, audio is not coming.
Is it audible? Nand, is it audible?
Yeah, you are audible, sir.
Okay. So good morning all of you. Respected guest, Dr. K.R. Parmar sir, our HOD, C.R. Parekh sir, all the faculties from the different colleges and our dear students. On behalf of the EC department, GEC Modasa, it gives me a warm welcome for every one of you to participate in this cultivated webinar on evolution of wireless standards, challenges with the 5G and recent trends. Because of the huge technical support from the inline solution and under the valuable guidance of our HOD Professor C.R. Parekh sir, we can arrange this webinar. I ensure that this webinar will be competent and next 1.5 hours will be really fruitful to every one of you. Now, without wasting much of the time, I request to our HOD sir, Professor C.R. Parekh sir, to give the brief introduction of our today's speaker, Dr. K.R. Parmar sir, and then Parmar sir will start the session. Please, Parekh sir.
Good morning to all. I hope I am audible. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
So
Yes.
it is indeed a matter of great pleasure for me to introduce Professor K.R. Parmar sir, the speaker of this session. Professor Parmar sir obtained his PG and PhD from MS University, Baroda. He has almost 25 years of experience in academics. Professor Parmar sir is an excellent academician, as we all know. He is an able administrator, and above all, he is a great human being. I can say that because I have an experience of working closely with him for about a decade. He has served at LDC Ahmedabad, GEC Modasa, and GEC Gandhinagar. He has also served at Commissionerate for almost a decade, and currently is a professor and head at Adani Institute of Infrastructure, as we all know. Professor Parmar has authored a number of books and maybe hundreds of national and international research papers. It is always a privilege and fortune for me to have worked under his auspicious leadership. Without wasting much of time, now I hand it over to Parmar sir. Parmar sir, please start your session.
Hello everyone, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
yes, sir.
Cancel कर दूं?
Good morning, all. Good morning, all. Parmar sir is just setting up the presentation. We shall start soon.
Okay.
Okay, can you see the first slide?
Yes, sir.
No, sir.
Huh?
No, sir. I am unable to see, sir.
Yes, webinar on 5G.
You will have, sir, actually, Kiran sir, your
Ah.
presentation is visible to all. They have to select your tab to view the presentation.
And my voice is audible, no?
Yes,
Yes,
sir, your
sir.
voice
Yes,
is
sir.
also audible.
Audible.
So
Audible.
shall I start? Shall I start?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, definitely.
Okay. So good morning once again.
Good morning, sir.
Morning, sir.
Good morning. So this was a discussion between me and Parekh sir that let us organize one webinar for GEC Modasa students, and I had served at GEC Modasa during 2002 to 2004. So I am always happy to visit GEC Modasa campus, and if personally I cannot visit, this is the way I can interact with Modasa faculty and Modasa students. So welcome to
Thank
my
you, sir.
webinar. This is on evolution of wireless standards, challenges with 5G and recent trends. to give you a brief overview of my presentation, I have prepared about 45 slides, which I would be able to discuss within 50 to 55 minutes. Thereafter, I would have 10 minutes of time for question answer from the students and faculty. And I have another assignment at 12:30. So we would probably stop at 12:15, right? Sorry
Yes, sir.
for 3 minutes delay due to some technical problem in my Google Meet settings. It's only 11:04. So let me start with the news, technology news, which are doing the rounds. The Europe's largest 5G research network goes live in Germany. This news was published on the web on May 13, 2020. So just before 10 days, this news was published on the web, and this was published on the website of Ericsson. Ericsson is a company which builds the mobile network equipment. The core equipment behind the network are manufactured, researched by Ericsson company. And this news item was published there. So how did they announce this? They announced that Europe's largest 5G research network, powered by Ericsson 5G products and solutions, has gone live in Germany. So this went live in Germany. Comprising multiple partners, the 5G Industry Campus Europe aims to develop and implement applications and solutions for digitized and network production to benefit 5G production across Europe and beyond. Now let us understand the difference between network which is rolled out for the normal customers or consumers and network which is rolled out only for industries. The requirements of industries are different, requirements of general public are different. They are rolling out the research network. This is research. This is actual research which is going on, which has not been finalized, which has not been standardized on a global scale. And that's why we can say this 5G technology is in the research and development phase. It is in the testing phase. And some networks are rolled out, but they are on the experimental basis only. So what are they planning to do with this? They are developing this solution only for industries, and for what purpose? To implement applications and solutions for digitize and network production. So industries are producing some products. They are very complex products, and they want to capture the images of this production process. They want to capture the data related to production process. They want to communicate this huge amount of data in the network, and that's why it is an industrial research network, right? This was May 13, 2020, very recent. How did they achieve this? The various 5G industrial application scenarios will be tested during next 3 years, right? So we should await the full rollout of 5G networks by say 2 to 3 years before we see the light of 5G technology in our country. From 5G sensor technology for monitoring and controlling highly complex production processes. So they are doing it for industrial processes, industrial production. They are bringing it to mobile robotics and logistics and cross-location production chains. So there are multiple manufacturing plants. Plant 1 is at one place, plant 2 is far away from that place. So they want to connect these two plants using 5G network. The use of modern age cloud systems for fast data processing for fully networked and adaptive production will also be tested. So they are going to test this industrial environment, industrial production with the 5G network connectivity, and the frequency band used was 3.7 gigahertz to 3.8 gigahertz. It was the first 5G license in March only, before 2 months. And this 5G Industry Campus Europe was awarded its first 5G license. India is thinking of giving 5G licenses. Work is going on at the government level. They are setting some base price for the spectrum of 5G. The spectrum of 5G has a base price of roughly 500 crores for 1 megahertz of bandwidth. You can imagine the cost associated with 5G spectrum. So this is base price, means this is minimum price above which the network operators would bid for their price, and whoever bids the highest amount, somebody bids 800 crores, somebody bids 900 crores, he would be awarded the license to operate 5G services in our country. So this news was the recent one, and I decided to start my presentation with this news. Now, how are they testing to roll out 5G network, or even on an experimental basis, or even for this kind of test scenario? You need to work with various components, network components, the hardware, the software, and integration of this hardware and software. So these are some of the photographs of bandpass filters which they have developed for millimeter wave. See, primarily microwave frequency bands are going to be used for 5G mobile communication, because as we know, if we increase carrier frequency, our bandwidth increases, our data rate increases, and the single most objective of 5G network is to enhance the data rate to few gigabits per second. So these are some of the bandpass filters which are designed. You can see the range of frequencies. This is 71 to 76 gigahertz. So 5 gigahertz of bandwidth to be made available with these bandpass filters, right? This is 71 to 76, 71 to 76 gigahertz. So these kind of components are also manufactured. They are used for testing. They are used for experimental research. This is not standardized. We do not know whether 71 gigahertz would be finally adopted by various countries or 72 gigahertz. It is a question of standardization, which would be done on a worldwide basis. If we purchase mobile phone as on today, we come to know about the frequency bands over which our mobile phone is able to work. So there are various frequency bands which our mobile phone is able to receive, right? There are multiple frequency bands. They are not restricted to only GSM 800 to 900 megahertz or other. It is working with Wi-Fi, it is working with Bluetooth. So there are different frequencies associated with transmission and reception, and that is why the experimental work is done for various frequencies. Now they are bringing the data rates possible with fiber optic connectivity. You can see these fiber optic cables. These fiber optic cables would be connected to your RF devices, your RF transceivers, and you would be aggregating the data so that the final data rate is of the order of few gigabits per second, whereas the data rate over the wireless network will be less than that. And when the aggregated data rate is few hundred gigabits per second, it can be converted into individual wireless channels of few gigabits per second, maybe 5 gigabits per second or 10 gigabits per second. So this is how the experimental work is taking place today. So the point here which is to be emphasized is they are bringing the fiber optic connectivity up to the end point of wireless link, that is between base station to mobile station, right? So now with this kind of background, let me set the agenda for my presentation. We will introduce the networks, wireless networks, and its evolution from 1G to 5G. Then we would specifically discuss the 5G cellular architecture. Once we go through the evolution from 1G to 5G, we will see the emerging communication technologies for 5G networks, the role of massive MIMO architecture. This is particularly antenna architecture which is supporting the 5G data rates. Then there are millimeter wave solutions. From where I am starting my presentation, they are millimeter wave solutions. They are high frequencies or high band frequencies in the microwave range. Then there are 5G research activities. Who are the global players in 5G research? And then finally concluding remarks with the question answer from your side. So how do we start with? The recent technology constituents like HSPA and LTE, high-speed packet access, and long-term evolution launch as advancement of current wireless technologies. Presently, India is working with 4G technologies. At some places, even 4G is not available. It is 3G or even less than that. But with 4G, you might have experienced the maximum data rate which is supported is roughly 10 Mbps. It can be slightly higher, it can be slightly lower, but roughly we can take up the figure of 10 Mbps. The new technology is to provide different ways of accessing spectrum. The most important part in wireless communication is the spectrum, the range of frequencies available to us, the government authorities which are allowing specific frequency bands to various network operators, and it is divided between network operators. So if total bandwidth is 50 megahertz, these 50 megahertz would be divided between say 5 different operators. So every operator would get 10 megahertz. This is how these networks are working. Considerable higher frequency ranges are expected for 5G networks, considerably higher compared to the present frequencies. Massive antenna configurations are the only solutions. They are the solution for increasing the data rate so that it can reach few gigabits per second. And we are expecting device to device communication and ultra dense deployments for 5G networks. So presently, normally the communication systems are between human beings. They are not involving human beings and the industrial plants. They are not involving communication between one industrial plant and another industrial plant. Or they are not involving two devices solely connected by wireless network, right? So this is expected for 5G. Later on, when we see the architecture of 5G, we would be able to see how they would be integrated into various kind of communication scenarios. So starting with the evolution of wireless technologies, we start from ground zero, the first generation, the analog, and then second generation digital, then third generation, fourth generation, and finally up to fifth generation. So Marconi, an Italian inventor, communicated letter S along a distance of 3 kilometers with the help of electromagnetic waves. All of us know about the role of electromagnetic waves in wireless communication. If electromagnetic waves were not there, if Maxwell had not given the theory, if Marconi had not tested or experimented with electromagnetic waves, we would not have been able to communicate over radio links. So data rate, mobility, coverage, and spectral efficiency are parameters deciding evolution of wireless networks. This is the most important point. From 1G to 5G, what is going to change? Your data rate is going to change. Your mobility.
Sir,
Yes, please.
Kiran sir, please start presenting your screen again. Someone has taken over by mistake.
Oh.
Yeah. Resume presenting.
Okay.
You have to resume presenting.
Okay, fine. Is it visible?
Yes, sir. Now it is visible. Please
Fine.
continue.
Okay.
Yes.
So which parameters decide the evolution path? Number one, the most important is data rate. Data rate is continuously increasing as the networks are evolving. Second is mobility. Mobility means you want to move with a very high speed. You want to drive your car at 100 kilometers per hour and you want to still receive the signals. That is how they are testing the networks. South Korea Telecom SKT tested a BMW car running at 150 kilometers per hour, and then they received the data with a rate of few gigabits per second in the moving car with such a high velocity, right? So this is how they are testing the mobility also. Coverage, that means the coverage area in terms of square kilometer or in terms of the city or town or the rural area. And spectral efficiency, how much data you can compress over a given bandwidth. 1 hertz bandwidth, how many bits you can send over 1 hertz bandwidth, that is deciding the spectral efficiency. So these four parameters are deciding the evolution of wireless technologies: data rate, mobility, coverage, and spectral efficiency. 1G and 2G use circuit switching. Especially 1G, we should not tell it is circuit switching. 1G was purely analog communication system. It was using frequency modulation. We know the frequency modulation, the role of frequency modulation in suppressing noise, and the cellular communications started especially with this analog counterpart, right? But then very soon the digital technologies took over, and we in India, we started our cellular networks in year 1996, right? Delhi was the first city where the mobile networks were made operational, and when we started late, we started directly with digital 2G technology. So in technology, sometimes if you are late, you get the latest technology. This is the advantage of being late. Normally, if I want to purchase something, the latest model is available if you buy it at a later point of time, right? So this is the advantage which we got in the mobile networks. 1G was never made available to India. It was purely analog system, but you would be surprised to know that 1G and 2G were working together in USA, because they had 1G network and then they had introduced 2G. So 2G had to be made compatible to 1G, and that's why they continued with 1G and 2G. Then came the 2.5G and 3G. Between 1G and 2G, you had between 2G and 3G, you had 2.5G. Sometimes they call it 2.75G also. They use both circuit and packet switching. And 3.5G onwards, they use packet switching. Now, you know the difference between circuit switching and packet switching. In circuit switching, you have a dedicated connection from source to destination, and nobody is sharing this connection. You are exclusive owner of this particular path. That is circuit switching. Your voice calls in 2G GSM network or 2G CDMA network, where voice controlled, they are circuit switch. Whereas in packet switching, it is store and forward system, right? So your voice is converted into data, and data is following the path of store and forward mechanism. It is a packet switching. So that's why we have some issues of quality of sound in packet switch network. But if you are having a good bandwidth, if you are having a good coverage, then your voice call and data call can hardly be differentiated. But one most important difference between voice call and data call, I would like to mention. Your voice call of circuit switching appears to be more natural, whereas your data call, which uses packet switching, appears to be synthetic or artificial. And what is the reason? Because you are not giving dedicated path to your packets, right? From source to destination, they travel via multiple paths, and that's why you have to assemble the packets. This is packet assembly, disassembly, and this loses the original original quality of your voice. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Continue?
Yes, sir, you are audible. Yes, sir.
So this is the evolution path. On y-axis, you have mobility and coverage. On x-axis, you have data rate, right? So starting from 1G, 2G, then up to 4G, this graph shows up to 4G only. You have two kinds of scenario. One is indoor and another is outdoor. Your wireless network inside your home, inside your campus, Wi-Fi network, it's basically indoor network. And your users are either fixed, they do not move, or they move with very small velocity, that is pedestrian user, few meters per second or a few kilometers per hour, only 1 or 2 kilometers per hour. Whereas your outdoor, you have three categories. You have fixed users, you have pedestrian users, and you have vehicular users. So mobility and coverage, as you try to increase mobility and coverage as you move from indoor to outdoor, and if you want to increase your data rate, this path is provided by the evolution from 1G to 4G. So as you move from 1G to 4G, data rate is increasing. As you move from 1G to 4G, your coverage and mobility also increase. These are licensed spectrum, means government is controlling the frequency bands. Nobody can make their network operational without the approval of the government. Government would charge them for spectrum, government would charge them for revenue sharing, and so on. So 1G purely analog, we see the further details in the next slides. 2G completely digital but limited data. 2.5G slightly higher data rate compared to 3G. 3G was the first standard which was common standard for the entire world. Up to 2G and 2.5G, there were different standards for European countries, different standards for American countries, different standards for Japan, and so on. So what did India do for these standards? We adopted both American and European standards. India started with 2G GSM. India started with 2G CDMA also. Both the operators were there. Tata and Reliance were awarded the license for 2G CDMA. Remaining operators, they were providing the GSM networks. BSNL was provided both GSM and CDMA. If you remember, wireless in local loop solutions, WLL, the WLL solution which was available in the year 2003-4, that was working on CDMA technology, and that is also a limited range wireless standard. Then 3G was the first standard which was common for the entire world. So if we talk about global roaming, I move from one country to another without worrying about my compatibility of my mobile phone. That was made possible only with 3G. Before 3G, you were not able to move and adopt the global roaming because your handsets were not compatible, your frequencies were not compatible. You had different CDMA phones and you had different GSM phones. You could not have both the hardwares available in your mobile phone. So really the first standard which was common for the entire world was 3G standard, right? It worked on wideband CDMA. It continued with CDMA technology. So America started with CDMA, European countries started with GSM, and the evolution of 3G was on the path of American technology. These are packet switch networks. So from 2.5G onwards, all technologies are now packet switch, right? So then it went to 3.5G, 3.75G, and 4G, right? In between, there are other standards also, this WiMAX and Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and so on. We have been using Bluetooth. We have been using Wi-Fi. WiMAX was not so popular, or it was not rolled out by the operators. BSNL on its website does publicize about WiMAX network, but very few WiMAX networks were made operational. This is unlicensed spectrum. For this Wi-Fi, this does not require any license from the government, so it's called unlicensed spectrum. So you can see up to 3G you had circuit switch, but there was packet switching possible between 2.5G and 3G also. So there is an overlap between circuit switching and packet switching. What does it mean? You could transfer your voice call using circuit switching, or you could transfer your voice call using packet switching, both. So that there is a hetero kind of solution available for the data transfer. 4G and beyond, all networks are going to be heterogeneous networks, and 5G would be a truly heterogeneous. It would combine each and everything. See, earlier mobile communication networks were different and our internet data networks were different. Now slowly and slowly your internet is available on your mobile phone. Today with my mobile phone I can perform video conferencing, I can present my Google Meet presentation on my mobile phone only. So mobile networks are now integrated with the data networks on a very large scale. Now it is becoming difficult to differentiate between mobile network and our internet data network. They are integrated to a very large extent. Earlier mobile networks were separate and your internet data networks were separate. We were using Ethernet and wired connectivity. Now data is wireless. Now data is wirelessly reaching to our mobile phones and our laptops. So quickly we would go through these development phase of 1G, 2G, 3G and 4G. We would not spend much time on technologies up to 4G because we want to spend more time on 5G. So this started in 1970s and deployed in 1980s. They were based on analog techniques, especially frequency modulation. They use frequency division multiple access, and they operated between this 450 to 900 megahertz frequency band. The system capacity was very low, and in terms of data rate comparison, see, strictly speaking, you cannot compare data rate for 1G because it was not a digital technology. But just for sake of comparison, 10 kilobits per second is the data rate which would have been possible if it was a digital network. That's all for comparison. Otherwise, you can never mention kilobits per second for analog technology. It has to be in terms of kilohertz bandwidth only. So it is a very, very low data rate. Then there were two standards for 1G. One is Advanced Mobile Phone System, AMPS, which was popular in South America, China, Australia, and you know the role of American Telephone and Telegraph Company, and Bell division, Bell Lab is its research division. Hundreds of patents are filed by Bell Labs. Today, if you visit website of Nokia, there is a link on Nokia Bell Labs. Now, Nokia is part of this Bell Lab research. So they are doing lot of research in wireless technologies. They are filing hundreds of patents annually. And whatever products are emerging in the market, they are due to research of companies like Nokia, Samsung, Ericsson, and so on. So there is another European standard. This was American standard. This was European standard. It is known as European Total Access Communication System, where the bandwidth is scaled to 25 kilohertz instead of 30 kilohertz in AMPS. So there is a difference in bandwidth. It was slightly less, 25 kilohertz and 30 kilohertz. For communicating 4 kilohertz voice signal, this was more than sufficient. And since it was slightly higher, see, you simply require 4 kilohertz bandwidth to transmit your voice if it is single sideband suppressed carrier system. But when you are using frequency modulation, as you know, the bandwidth requirement is higher. So 25 kilohertz was given to single user for 1G. Then 2G came in mid 1990s. GSM was introduced in 1991. It was a fully digital network. And there were two standards, TDMA and CDMA. TDMA was European standard, CDMA was American standard, and they set the spectrum. Now, what is the most important part in mobile communication? The mobile communication works with the single most important concept of frequency reuse. You have to repeatedly use same set of frequencies, carrier frequencies, so that you can accommodate many users, because you can't have individual frequencies for individual users. You have to share the spectrum, you have to share the bandwidth. So as and when multiple users try to communicate with one another, you have to use the frequency sharing or bandwidth sharing, and that is how these technologies of multiple access came into existence. There was an increase of 3 times in overall system capacity from 1G to 2G. But it supported only voice centric services. It was meant for voice transmission only. And if those who were using mobile phone in the early days of 1998, 2000, 2001, they were using short message service, SMS. Still we are using SMS. SMS is not obsolete. See, why do we start with 1G and 2G? You should not have a wrong impression in your mind that 2G is now obsolete. No, 2G is not obsolete. I can send SMS today also. 2G networks are very much part of our mobile networks as on today, 2020, May 2020, because I can send SMS. Normal SMS is working even today. So this has not become obsolete. Fax, etc. And the data rate supported was less than 9.6 kilobits per second. So this was very low data rate. Of course, there was a slight difference between TDMA data rate and CDMA data rate. The bandwidth available for CDMA was slightly higher, and that's why it could support slightly higher data rate, which we will see when we see both the technologies in detail. So some of the standards for 2G wireless, GSM, the most popular in India. We are still having many GSM operators, many GSM consumers. So it was a TDMA based European network. American system known as interim system IS 136, it was United States Digital Cellular, and it was different from European. It was a TDMA system, but it supports more users, 6 times more users with improved performance, and you can see the data rates are different. GSM network was supporting maximum data rates at 24.7 kbps. And this USDC IS 136 was providing 48.6 kilobits per second data rate. Now see, in America, there were two standards. One was American TDMA standard and another was American CDMA standard. IS 95 is interim system 95. It was a American CDMA standard. Now CDMA is a complex technology, but it is highly secure and it makes efficient use of bandwidth. The noise suppression and the signal to noise ratio characteristics are better in CDMA. So the quality of the sound was superior in CDMA. Those who were using CDMA phones of Reliance or Tata network, they might have experienced that the quality of sound was better in CDMA during early days of their network operation, right? So this capacity was 8 to 10 times that of AM Mbps, 0.4 kbps data rate, basic data rate. Of course, when we combine this basic data rate, you can enhance the data rate, but it is consuming more time. So these are three primary 2G standards: GSM, American TDMA, and American CDMA. Then came the 2.5G, which provided internet to your mobile phone. So those who were using internet during their initial days of mobile use, it was GPRS, General Packet Radio Service, GPRS, and it provided 115 kilobits per second data rate. So you can imagine it's a low data rate, but then it is sufficient in those. It was sufficient in those days. So no complaint. People were using GPRS also. I was using GPRS, I was using Edge, I was using 3G because I have been using it right from the early days of 2G. So GPRS led to a data rate increase. How did it increase the data rates? See, typically in GSM network, you are combining 8 users over a single RF carrier frequency. And these 8 time slots, if I give more time slots and give it to a single user, then it becomes a GPRS. So GPRS is aggregating the data slots and aggregating the time slots available to single user from multiple users. Then it can enhance the data rate. So instead of giving 10 kbps to one particular user, combine such 10 kbps slots for 4 users and give it to only one user, so he can get 40 kbps. This is as simple as this. As simple as this. So it provided the wireless application protocol, WAP, multimedia messaging service. I could send multimedia message. So with CDMA phones also, I was sending multimedia messages, MMS. It was called MMS. Those who have used earlier mobile phones, MMS is multimedia message, not simple text, but it is with your picture or image. And you could support the web and email with 2.5G. Then there were different standards for 2.5G. They were known as Cellular Digital Packet Data, GPRS, General Packet Radio Service, Enhanced Data Rate for Global Evolution, and CDMA1, that is IS95B. As you see, continuously it increased the data rate from 56 to 114 kbps. Edge increased it to 384 kbps. And then CDMA1 increased it to 115 kbps. So they were different standards between 2G and 3G, and that's why 2G is pure GSM, 3G is pure WCDMA. So between 2G and 3G, these 4 standards came into existence. This is Cellular Digital Packet Data, and it was used in United States. GPRS is a evolution of GSM, so it is a European standard. Edge is again enhancement of GPRS. So from GSM to GPRS, from GPRS to Edge, this path led to 384 kbps. So the data rate was increased further. Then what was the aim of 3G? 3G was meant for simultaneous voice and data transmission. You do not differentiate between voice and data. Once it is converted into digital, it is completely not differentiable. You can't differentiate between voice and data once it is digitized. So you don't have a concept of your circuit switching or packet switching. You can transmit it using packets. So faster internet access, interactive web sessions, video calling, multimedia content, voice, data and video, universal global roaming. This is the most important feature of 3G, and 384 kbps while moving 2 Mbps when stationary. So naturally, when we are moving, our data rate decreases. When we are stationary, our data rate can increase. So maximum data rate, theoretical data rate, which was possible with 3G network, was 2 Mbps. Okay, there were different 3G wireless systems on a global scale, but most of them were having same multiple access technology, that is wideband CDMA. So these standards were again known as UMTS, then CDMA 2000, and time division synchronous CDMA. But you can see here, this is CDMA, this is CDMA, and this was also CDMA. So all of them are primarily evolution of CDMA network. So finally what happened? American technology prevailed. European technology did not result into a time division multiple access kind of situation, but it was evolved on the basis of code division multiple access. So finally the technology went for settling down around code division multiple access. It is called a wideband code division multiple access because each user is given a bandwidth of 5 megahertz. So I can get the data rate, theoretically maximum data rate of 2 Mbps over a bandwidth of 5 megahertz. This was your wideband CDMA standard. Then 4G came into existence recently. Before 3 years only, we are using the 4G networks. It is commercially deployed. The mobile WiMAX is also called 4G, and long-term evolution LTE is also 4G. 4G has another name which is known as long-term evolution, LTE standard. It was introduced in Australia in the year 2011, and in India it was introduced in 2012. So it has become an old standard, and we have been using it still. There are some areas which are still not having 4G connectivity. They are still working on 3G. And in Jammu and Kashmir, you might have read about sometimes they are only provided 2G networks. Though the networks are capable of providing 4G, they are giving only 2G connectivity. So now we come to the main topic of 5G challenges. Why 5G is challenging? Why it would be difficult to roll out? Why it would be a costly affair? And in the beginning of adoption of any technology, the technology is always costly. As number of subscribers increase, technology becomes cheaper, and more customers can be part of the network. But initially, it is always a costly affair. So we can expect the first challenge of 5G is avalanche of traffic volume. You can expect the traffic to increase 1,000 times in 10 years. This is the biggest challenge. How would you handle this much traffic? Everybody would like to see movie on their mobile phones. It requires huge bandwidth to download or to see live streaming of the video, right? Video is basically a high bandwidth signal, and to stream it live, like a broadcasting, TV broadcasting. See, TV is working on a different standard, TV is working on a different technology. But today I can integrate my TV with my Wi-Fi network, right? And which is connected to the local wireless operator. So this is how the traffic volume is going to be very high. Massive growth in connected devices. You would have communicating machines. Your cars would be connected to network. Your cameras would be connected to network. Your mobile phones would be connected to network. Your CCTV surveillance systems would be connected to network. Your ships, your houses, smart houses, and your equipment, they are all expected to be connected to the the network, 5G network, and that you are expecting 50 billion devices in 2020. Of course, these many devices do exist, but many of them are not connected to 5G network. Today, all of them are not connected to 5G network. As I started with the German rollout of the 5G network for industrial applications or industrial research, these devices are connected with 5G, but not all of them. Then there is a large diversity of use cases and requirements. Somebody wants to see only text files. Somebody wants to see multimedia content. Somebody wants to play only music. Somebody wants to monitor the industrial manufacturing process on his mobile phone. Somebody wants to control his home, which is a smart home, from anywhere in the world. So this leads to a different or a diversity of use cases and requirements. Say you can expect car-to-car communication or device-to-device communication. So this leads to the characteristics of communicating machines, and you have different use cases. Everybody is not requiring same data rate. Everybody is not requiring same bandwidth. This slide is slightly compressed one. Too many points have been mentioned, but the important points I would like to explain. The challenges of 5G would be 1,000 times greater capacity, and 70% of them would be indoor. Your data rate is expected to increase from order of 10 to 100. Your end-to-end delay or end-to-end latency is expected to be less than 5 milliseconds. Your massive number of connections, which would increase by a factor of 10 to 100. The cost has to be sustainable, right? Otherwise, customers would not be applying for 5G connections. And quality of experience, it has to be consistent. So these are some of the challenges. How they would address these challenges? You would have to allocate the required spectrum. You would have to use a technology of massive MIMO. You have to go for new air interface. What do you mean by new air interface? Air interface is designing the waveforms for transmitting your digital data. how much bandwidth would be allocated, which kind of waveform would be supported, what would be the power output level of your transmitter, what would be the range of transmission, and so on. This is the new air interface. You may expect all optical networks beyond the wireless network. See, the basic backbone connection is fiber optic only. Whatever data I am receiving on my mobile phone, at some point of time, it would be carried by fiber optic, because huge amount of data cannot be transmitted solely by a wireless network. It has to be supported by fiber optic network. So you can expect all optical networks which are joining the wireless nodes, right? Then there are other points like energy efficiency, energy management, and self-organizing network, and so on. They are much challenging, and the researchers have to address these challenges. And lot of research work is going on, the spectrum management, massive MIMO, and so on. There are some design fundamentals also for 5G, which is required by the researchers, right? They are 5G design fundamentals. They have to use high frequencies because you want to support larger bandwidth. You have to combine your optical transmission and switching wherever possible, not purely wireless, but it should include optical technologies and so on. So these are some of the challenges and design requirements for 5G. Specifically, what do we expect? The 4G network, right? The 4G network is working on these frequency bands, 1.8 to 2.6 gigahertz frequency band. You have the availability of 1.4 megahertz to 20 megahertz bandwidth to a single user. Single user I am talking about. Theoretically, they are talking about 20 megahertz. Nobody is able to receive 20 megahertz bandwidth or obtain 20 megahertz bandwidth from his operator. The downlink rate is theoretically 3 gigabits per second. Uplink is 1.5 gigabits per second. The
Sir, slide nathi aali.
okay,
Sir, please
is
slide.
it there?
Show the slide. No, sir. Right now it is
Not there.
Sir, restart presenting, sir.
Oh my God.
Presenting, sorry, to start, sir.
Okay.
Resume presenting.
Okay. Okay. Visible? Fine.
Yes, sir. Yes. Now it is visible.
So it is supporting the turbo cores for your channel coding. You know, different cores are used for channel coding. Wireless network is highly susceptible to errors because of noise, because wireless channels are always noisy channels. So you have to compulsorily use the channel coding techniques to detect the errors, to correct the errors. And this is a very complex task. You must be knowing that the coding and decoding part of channel is primarily taken care of by VLSI chips, dedicated VLSI chips only. Suppose you talk about Viterbi decoding for convolutional cores, you must have a VLSI chip. Only a complex chip like a VLSI chip can only decode this. No other electronic circuit is capable of decoding this, because you have very high data rate, you have very complex decoding algorithms, and it has to work in real time. It cannot wait for 5 minutes to detect the error and correct the errors. And that's why they are dedicated VLSI chips, right? So this 4G technology which we are using today is roughly working in these frequency bands. But now come to the spectrum of 5G, what they are proposing, how they are going to manage this new spectrum. So you have two options: your LTE network, which is 4G network, which may evolve, and your 5G network may be backward compatible with 4G network. So this is one option. So that means you are going to use existing spectrum, and existing spectrum means below 6 gigahertz. So there are two solutions which are primarily targeted. Now, if you remember, I started with the first technology which is rolled out in Germany before 6 days or 10 days. It is working below 6 gigahertz. It was 3.5 to 3.7 gigahertz. So this is the first solution. That means that the researchers are starting with the frequency bands which are compatible or downward compatible with LTE technology, and that's why they are not moving far ahead from this. That's why it is restricted to below 6 gigahertz. But then there are research areas where new spectrum above 6 gigahertz is also thought of, and that is totally new technology. So overall 5G solution can have a evolution for 4G and totally new frequency bands, and they have to interwork. Interwork means when it is using 20 gigahertz or 30 gigahertz carrier frequency, it should be able to receive 4G call. Today I am having a 4G mobile phone. Tomorrow I will have a 5G mobile phone. Does it mean that 5G mobile phone will not work with 4G network? It has to work. If it doesn't work, nobody would subscribe to 5G network. The existing networks are never dismantled. They are never made obsolete overnight. You have to give some transition time for evolving from 4G to fully 5G networks, and that's why this is interworking. Mean both the frequency bands are likely to work for some more time. This is the overall architecture of 5G networks. How the 5G network would be integrated, and you can see there are wired links, there are massive MIMO links, means there are multiple transmit and receive antennas. Again, there are wireless links, there are resource links, there are control plane and user plane of your data networks, and then there are communication links. Now let us understand how it would be rolled out. You have your massive MIMO network, means multiple transmit and multiple receive antennas. That massive MIMO network would be catering to your mobile small cell network, your line of sight signals, your core network, and providing the internet. So this massive MIMO network is enhancing the data rate, right? But then it has to be connected to your internet gateway. Your internet has to be integrated with your massive MIMO network. Otherwise, how will you access the websites or the servers where the huge data is lying? So that's why this internet would be connected to your massive MIMO network. Then you have the small houses, small cells, right? They are also all of them, they are connected to internet. The internet is connected everywhere. Then you have a small wireless sensor network. The wireless sensor network would be part of 5G. This boundary, outer boundary of an elliptical shape is the entire 5G network. So this is the most important slide for architecture of 5G. You have your core network, which is a massive MIMO network, which is covering to individual users through mobile small cell networks, right? Then you have your cognitive radio network. CR network is your cognitive radio network. So you can see some of the full form. CR is your cognitive radio. VLC is your visible light communication, which will use fiber optic. Then this is line of sight. Then there are so many acronyms attached to this. D2D is your device to device. So here, this is your gigabit Ethernet, which will work at 60 gigahertz frequency. So it is different frequency bands, not directly compatible with below 6 gigahertz. This is your Wi-Fi networks. Wi-Fi speed will also tremendously increase, and this gigabit Ethernet is primarily restricted to a small area, but it would be part of this overall network. So you have device to device communication, you have your internet connectivity, you have your basic mobile communication, you have your cognitive radio networks, you have local Ethernet networks supporting gigabits, you have wireless sensor networks, everything integrated in the whole 5G architecture. This is how they are planning or envisaging the 5G network rollout. This is the general 5G cellular network architecture. The most important part is how do we increase the data rate, and this data rate is increased by a technology known as multiple input, multiple output, massive MIMO network, right? So instead of using single transmit antenna and single receive antenna, I can go for 4x4, 8x8. You increase number of antennas, and in the later slides we will be able to see that we are able to go for 64x64 or 128x128 antennas, provided we are using very high frequency of few gigahertz, so that dimensions of the antenna, physical dimensions of antenna are very small and they can be integrated easily. So that is how we are going for massive MIMO architecture. So 5G would be primarily driven by massive MIMO architecture. If you don't go for massive MIMO, you cannot increase the data rate. That is very simple. So here only a 2x2 communication system is shown, 2x2, 2 transmit antennas and 2 receive antennas, and it can be extended to multi-users, MIMO, multi-users. So there are multiple users. So this transmit antenna can communicate with this receive antenna, this transmit antenna can, there are cross connections. So you have 4 different possible combinations. As you increase number of transmitting antennas and number of receiving antennas, you can go for multiple connections from transmit to antenna, supporting higher data rates, combining data rates, aggregating data rates, and then you can expect the data rate of few gigabits per second. So massive MIMO is scaling up your multi-user MIMO, right? What we are proposing, a base station, you will have multiple antennas at base station, because it is easier to use multiple antennas at base stations rather than on your mobile phone. Your mobile phone cannot have too many antennas because it has a limitation of size, it has a limitation of power consumption, and that's why receiving side mobile receiver would not have too many antennas, at the most 2 antennas or 4 antennas. But then transmitter side, that is base station, you would have many antennas. The base station antennas can be 64, 100 and 128. These many antennas are proposed for a massive MIMO network. So 5G is primarily targeting the use of massive MIMO antenna structures. Unless you go for massive MIMO, you cannot enhance the data rate. This is as simple as this, right? There are challenges for massive MIMO. Scaling data rates and interfaces to support large NBBS. You have to provide interface. These antennas would be connected to ground station. Ground stations means transceivers. Transceivers means you have to aggregate the data. So this part would be complex. So the scaling of data rates and interfaces is a challenge. Low latency for channel reciprocity. Fast switch from uplink to downlink. See, as I mentioned, in mobile receiver there are less number of antennas. From transmitting point of view, there are more number of antennas. So this reciprocity of antenna or channel reciprocity is not uniform. You have higher data rate in one direction and lower data rate in another direction. So this is channel reciprocity problem. And synchronizing radios across NBS base station antennas. You have to synchronize radios. You have to synchronize various links. When you are using multiple antennas, you have to perfectly synchronize beam from one antenna and beam from another antenna. Otherwise, your data would be mismatched. It would not be reaching the intended receiver. You have to synchronize all the transmissions from all the antennas to a single point of control. And that is the biggest challenge in massive MIMO. You have K user equipment antennas and user equipments, and they are mobile phones. So this is how the wireless environment in massive MIMO would look like. Now see how they have investigated. The researchers have tried with 24 cross 24 MIMO channel. This is some research which I am explaining or trying to explain. See how did it work. They had 12 element antenna. So with 12 element, how did they reach 24? Because 12 horizontal and 12 vertical means it can become 24. You know the polarization of an antenna. 12 horizontally polarized and 12 vertically polarized antenna can give me 24 links. So 12 into 2, 24 transmitter side, 24 receiver side. Here also there are 12 element array. So this is also 24. But it is installed on the top of the vehicle. This seems to be Toyota vehicle, right? And how much data rate they could achieve? They could achieve 30 gigabits per second. 30 Gbps data was achieved. The carrier frequency was 11 gigahertz and the configuration was 24 cross 24. This is how they achieve 30 giga. You can imagine 30 Gbps data rate over a wireless network. So they had used these 12 antennas with dual polarization. This is the structure of the antenna. It had a gain of 15 dBi, very high gain, 15 dBi, right? And they are sector antennas, right? This is the distance, typical distance, 92 meter, 130 meter ending point. So they tried to move this vehicle from this point to this point, and they tried to receive the signal transmitted by these 12 antennas or 24 antennas in different polarization. It was 400 megahertz. Subcarrier in orthogonal frequency division multiplexing. OFDM is the technology which is proposed to be used for signal. The signals would be transmitted using OFDM technology. Orthogonal frequency division multiplexing means you have multiple carriers known as subcarriers. They carry the data rates, and these carriers which carry the data rates are differentiated with the digital signal processing operations known as inverse fast Fourier transform and fast Fourier transform. This fast Fourier transform and inverse fast Fourier transform is taught in subject of digital signal processing. but we do not know where it is exactly used. It is exactly used in wireless communication, and that's why we have to study this the FFT and IFFT, right? So this is one particular application, massive MIMO, and then channel side information and the error. They tried to measure this. This was done in Japan, right, with partnership of Tokyo Institute of Technology. So Japan was one of the countries which started with 5G research very early. Then the 5G research projects are running at several institutes across the globe. New York University Wireless Department or Wireless Research Center. It is one of the pioneer in the wireless research in the entire globe, and naturally United States is leading the research in 5G. You can see different frequency bands for research in 5G. There are frequencies of 28 gigahertz, 38 gigahertz, 60 gigahertz, 77 gigahertz, and so many research areas for wireless spectrum spread over. But ultimately, one thing is common: there would be roughly few gigahertz, and that's why they would be millimeter wave bands, and they would be very small in size. The antenna dimensions would be reduced to a great extent, and that's why they would be possible to be integrated easily. The other frequency bands are known to all of you: AM radio, FM radio, and so on. 3G, 4G cellular is few gigahertz, right? And this is the 77 gigahertz vehicular radar and wireless gigabit Ethernet and your 5G cellular. So some research has already taken place in 38 gigahertz also. Another test beds. What is test bed? Test bed is the experimental setup for doing this research, and it involves hardware. So several universities and organizations have already developed the test bed. University of Samsung itself, they had designed this massive MIMO architecture and tested this massive MIMO architecture with the band of 2.6 gigahertz, 2.4 gigahertz, and less than 5 gigahertz. Means this is below 6 gigahertz, sub 6 gigahertz frequency bands. Which hardware was used to test it? Network analyzer, which can perform all the wireless related measurements. Then there are boards and power PC, and there is a prescale digital signal processors. So these are the hardware platform, because to measure these signals you need hardware. Measurement is not possible without dedicated hardware working in these frequency bands. How many antennas they tested? 128 antennas, 8 x 8, 64 antennas, 8 x 8, 64 antennas. So anywhere between 64 to 128 antennas were tested, and they tested it for 6 users, 15 users, and then these users are not known. And they were processing this in real time. You understand the meaning of real time? Everything is happening real time means the delay is almost negligible. If within a fraction of seconds, few milliseconds only, you receive the signal. So irrespective of 128 antennas or 64 antennas, the latency is very low. So this was not possible. No means they could not process in real time, because the computational complexity of combining signals received from 128 antennas is enormous. You cannot imagine how will you combine signals received from 128 antennas. That's why they could not do it real time. They could not do it in real time, but Samsung was able to do it real time. You can imagine the research capability of Samsung. They did it in real time, right? So data collected over a long duration. Ours where channel is assumed constant, and they went for signal to interference noise ratio and high latency of 100 millisecond, and they could achieve a distance of 2 kilometers. So they had tested this for a distance of 2 kilometers. These are some of the applications which they are targeting for 5G. They are your AR, VR, or augmented reality, virtual reality kind of situations, wearable and flexible mobile devices, your ubiquitous healthcare, your ultra HD video streaming, very high data rate, very good quality picture and sound, then your real-time interactive game, and your smart map and navigation. Everything is possible with 5G because it would support higher data rates. Your mobile cloud, right now the cloud computing is accessed or mostly with laptops and desktops and servers, right? But then you can expect the mobile cloud with 5G rollout. Okay, next, what are the performance targets for 5G? The performance targets from 5G are anywhere from 6 gigabits per second to 50 gigabits per second. So peak data rate can increase beyond 50 gigabits per second, and from 2018 they have been predicting this, but 2020 they are still they have reached only up to a few gigabits per second. And see the difference between 4G and 5G. If 4G has a good coverage area and a poor coverage area, but 5G is supposed to have a uniform coverage area, uniform experience. So it is unlikely that you get good coverage of 4G in one area and bad coverage in another area. You are expecting a uniform coverage and quality of experience of a 5G network. So anywhere 1 Gbps, which is not possible in 4G. So we are targeting a data rate of 1 gigabits per second with 5G network with latency of less than 1 millisecond. Another prototype for millimeter wave beamforming. Beamforming is how do you orient the beams of the antennas. Antennas radiate the beams, right? You know the beam width of the antenna. So you can control the beam width of antenna by controlling multiple antennas. So how many antennas they had considered? They are considered 64 antennas, 8 cross 8. Means 8 rows and 8 columns. These are 64 antennas integrated in a dimensions of 66 mm by 66 mm. So in this small size, the base station antenna was integrated. You can imagine how much size. 66 millimeter is 6 centimeters. So 7 centimeter by 7 centimeter is 50 square centimeter. 50 square centimeter can accommodate 64 antennas. This is the technology which they had already, who had done? Samsung. Samsung had already designed this prototype. It was known as a beamforming prototype, and they claimed that it was the world's first mobile technology, world's first millimeter wave mobile technology, which is claimed by Samsung. How much data rate and how much bandwidth? It was the carrier frequency of 27.9 gigahertz. It had a bandwidth of 500 megahertz. You can see the enormous increase in bandwidth of 500 megahertz. The maximum transmitted power is 37 dBm, and you can see the beam width, upper beam width is 10 degree. 10 degree is a very small beam width. It is a highly narrow beam, highly dedicated in one particular direction. So suppose my base station wants to transmit only towards me, not to any other mobile phone. This is how they would achieve the peak data rate, because 10 degrees, see right now what is the coverage? Your sector antennas are covering 120 degrees. So from 120 degree beam to 10 degree, it is a factor of 10. You would be reducing the beam width of the antenna by a factor of 10, so that you can increase the data rate for a targeted user to a level of 1 gigabits per second, right? So this was the photograph. This is the photograph of millimeter wave beamforming prototype. You know prototype. Prototype is a single piece of equipment which is designed, which is being researched, which is tested before it goes for commercial production. The prototypes are tested rigorously, right? Now the important thing about the 5G is the channel characteristics. You must know about the channel characteristics. Your channel has to be measured with regard to its attenuation in the transmission phenomena, right? So how much attenuation is taking place from transmitting antenna to receiving antenna at a given frequency, that is done using channel measurements. The most important research is channel measurement. You have to test the channel, wireless channel, at a given carrier frequency. So this was tested in 2011. You can see the research of 5G is continuing from 2011. We have reached 2020. 9 years before this was done, and still 5G is not rolled out. So you can see the delay in rolling out the network after the research is initiated in the laboratories. See, this was the path loss exponent and smaller delay spread measurements. If you have studied wireless communication, you know about the delay spread. Wireless communication is basically a multipath propagation, and before the signals reach the destination, they arrive via multiple paths, and that's why there is a delay associated with each single path or individual path. And that's why there is a spread known as a delay spread between one signal and another signal. So how did they work? They tested it at two places. One in South Korea. Remember, South Korea is one of the leading nations in technological advancement, especially due to Samsung, right? This is again a Samsung research. So they tested it for line of sight and non-line of sight, right? what was tested? Path loss exponent. Path loss exponent is the rate at which your signal decreases from transmitting antenna to receiving antenna. And far away in the United States, they had tied up with University of Texas Austin campus. So there also they tried to measure, and you see the similarity between two measurements. In South Korea they got 2.22, and in America they got 2.21. Means very close approximation of your path loss exponent. What does it mean? The signal decreases as the roughly square of distance from the transmitting antenna, right? That is 2.22. The RMS delay spread measured was this nanosecond, 4 nanosecond, 11 nanosecond, that is 2 nanosecond and 14 nanosecond. And this is how they had tested the transmission and reception at 28 gigahertz frequency. The beam width of the transmitting antenna was kept 10 degree, beam width of the receiving antenna was kept 60 degree, and this is how they had tested this at two different places, right? These are some of the equipment which are used for 28 gigahertz channel measurement at New York University. New York University is one of the leading university. Professor Rappaport is working in New York University. So Rappaport is a very big name in wireless communication. If you want to read research papers, you will come across Rappaport's research papers. He has published more than 300 research papers. And American government also consults Professor Rappaport for wireless standards evolution, wireless standard consultancy, and so on. He is a very big name in wireless communication. So New York University is where Professor Rappaport is working. This is the setup of receiving hardware. This is a trolley. You have to shift this trolley. It is a portable. You go on moving in the campus with your receiving antenna, receiving your 28 gigahertz signal. You are measuring the signal on the equipment, and it is displayed on the display device of vector network analyzer or vector analyzer or spectrum analyzer. This is your transmitter hardware. Transmitter hardware has to be fixed, and this receiver hardware keep on moving. This is how they are testing the channel for 28 gigahertz characteristics. These are some of the photographs of the students of the university, how they are testing. This is a trolley portable. They keep on moving this, and this is how they test the characteristics of the channel for 28 gigahertz wireless network. This is the graph of attenuation characteristics of attenuation versus frequency. So as you can see, as carrier frequency increases, attenuation increases. So we are going for these green zones. Why? Because green zones means it is the minimum attenuation. On y-axis it is minimum, so these are providing minimum attenuations. So that's why 28 gigahertz and 30, you can see this is around 80 gigahertz, and then further there are 200 to 300 gigahertz frequency bands. This is where you get minimum. This is 28 gigahertz. 28 is here, this white, right? So this atmospheric attenuation varies. How do you know about this attenuation? You have to use hardware to measure the signal, continuously move around in a given area. You have to vary the distance. You have to measure the signal. You have to take statistical average, and then you have to see how much attenuation is there between transmit antenna and receive antenna. This was done by Rappaport. You can see the name of Rappaport. This is research paper published by Rappaport in 2011 in IEEE transactions. So this is how they publish the research papers for attenuation characteristics. Different modulation standards are proposed to be used for 5G. Mostly quadrature phase shifting, quadrature amplitude modulation, which is 16 QAM, and minimum shifting. They are proposed to be used for 5G networks. And you can see the signal to noise ratio for a bit error rate of 10⁻³ varies from 7 dB to 12 dB. So this 12 dB SNR is sufficient for your 5G networks, and they have tested it for this kind of modulation. So OFDM is going to be retained for 5G standards or 5G networks, and it is a fast Fourier transform based technology. OFDM technology is basically, and these are some of the important parameters for comparison. What is the role of modulation? By using higher order modulation like 16 QAM and 64 QAM and 128 QAM and 256 QAM, you can achieve a higher data rate. Today, if you purchase a mobile phone from Apple is supporting a hardware up to 256 QAM. If you see the technical specification on Apple's website, it supports 256 QAM modulation. So 5G, it would be 5G ready Even if they go from 16 to 64 to 128 to 256, your mobile phone would be able to receive the signal, provided it is matching with the standards of the modulation, right? This is the increase in spectral efficiency from 2.6 bits per second per hertz of 4G downlink and 1.8 bits per second per hertz for 4G uplink to 10 bits per second per hertz to 5G downlink and 5 bits per second per hertz to 5G uplink. Now, uplink is mobile to base station, downlink is base station to mobile. You can see because your mobile cannot have too many antennas, your efficiency is half of the base station antenna or base station link, right? So downlink is always stronger compared to uplink because you can increase the power in downlink, you can increase the number of antennas in the downlink, which is otherwise not possible in the uplink. So this is how the bandwidth spectral efficiency is going to increase roughly by which factor? 2.6 to 10 roughly increase of 4 and 1.8 to 5 roughly increase of 2.5, a factor of 2.5. So this is how the spectral efficiency of the cell in 5G network is likely to improve. There are challenges of 60 gigahertz networks also, but I don't have enough time to discuss this 60 gigahertz. Before the presentation is completed, the last slide I would like to show is 60 gigahertz radio frequency planning. If at all 60 gigahertz mobile system for 5G is rolled out, how would the network architecture? The network architecture would be like this. You have a radio frequency anywhere between 30 to 60 gigahertz. You have a low noise amplifier. You have a local oscillator, VCO, voltage control oscillator generated from phase lock loop. And there is a conversion. This is heterodyning or mixing of the incoming RF carrier with local oscillator carrier frequency. So this is an intermediate signal. This intermediate signal is your 5 gigahertz signal. So you would be down converting it to 5 gigahertz, and then you would be separating out I channel and Q channel, because in QPSK modulation, you have I channel and Q channel, right? This is known as a baseband. So baseband is your digital output. This is your analog 5 gigahertz. This is your analog 60 to 30 gigahertz. On the receiver side, it is a reverse change. Your data is digital, then it is digital to analog converter, then it is up converted in frequency, then it is further up converted to a range of 30 to 60 gigahertz by a power amplifier and the band pass filter and your transmit antenna. So this is your transmit antenna, this is your receive antenna, this is entire transceiver architecture for 60 gigahertz radio. This has also been tested. This is also tested by university known as Berkeley Wireless Research Center Design with the help of CMOS transistors. So Berkeley University is University of California in Berkeley. If you want to visit the website, I have the references. These 3 references are most important. Wireless Research at New York University, Berkeley Wireless Research Center, and Samsung Research. If you want to study about 5G research, you are requested to visit these 3 websites. BWRC, www.bwrc.com, right? And Samsung is also active, very active in research in 5G. Other players are also there. Nokia is there, Ericsson is there. But the pioneering work is done by this New York University, especially the theoretical research and preparing of the models for wireless channel. They are available at New York University website, right? So thank you. And now the session is on for the question and answers. I took few minutes more than expected, but then there was no choice. I had to cover. So now the session is on for your questions, right? Quickly.
Sir, a question करूं?
हाँ, yes please.
ऑडियो नहीं आती सर हमारा.
Sir,
I am not audible.
I
Both of
think
you are
you
audible.
can
Huh?
send the post by email because sir limited
Chat में आपने
time.
की 2 question. Hello.
Okay, my microphone is on. Can you hear me?
You are audible, sir. You are audible.
Okay.
Audible.
Okay, please. Very quickly, few questions. I have another appointment at 12:30, so please ask it quickly, precisely, briefly.
Sir, I have one question.
Sir, what?
Okay.
Sir, which type of the research carrying out in the antenna designing for the 5G?
Okay, good question. Number one, the antenna design, the research is in beam forming, research in multiple antenna configuration like 64 cross 64 or 128 cross 128, the theoretical simulation of these data rates, then the integration of these antennas in the hardware. This is also a good research area. So these are the research areas for antenna manufacturing and testing of wirelessly. It is basically beam forming of the antenna output, because ultimately the phase shift between different antennas would lead to a beam forming, and this is how the research is taking place.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, Hitesh, would you like to ask something? Which antenna material is used for FR2 zone? See, antenna material also a lot of research is taking place. They are testing with different kind of conducting materials. The most important part for the antenna material is its conductivity, because antenna has to be a conductive structure. Number one, its dielectric properties are also important. But as a model of antenna, it is a resonant circuit. Antenna is a resonant circuit. It is a narrowband device, right? So they are testing it for multiple characteristics from multiple materials, right? So the specific material, as on today, they are continuing with the conventional material used for the metallic structure, used with the metallic structure. But then lot of research is also taking place. As I displayed the 76 gigahertz microwave filters which they have designed, these kind of structures which can be attached with waveguides, because see, these antennas would be connected to waveguides. These are microwave frequency. You can't directly connect the coaxial cables because of skin effect. So that's why these antennas will be pyramidal horn antennas, and pyramidal horn antennas naturally they are metallic antennas. You can't have a different type of antenna, right? Okay. Next question.
Sir, someone has asked in the chat window.
Okay. Okay.
Sir, we request all the participants to ask questions by email to you,
Okay,
because you have the next assignment. So I think we can.
Okay. Okay. I
It was
will
very
go
good
through
question, sir.
the questions one by one. How can we check BDMA with massive MIMO? Okay. See, BDMA is your multiple access only, right? So you have to a lot of background noise. Yes. Okay. See, with massive MIMO, how do we test this? How do we test the radiation pattern from an antenna? You would have a receiver which is capable of moving in some area and receiving signals from different directions. So you have to measure the beam width. So how would you measure? You keep on measuring the received RF signal and restrict your decrease of RF strength by 3 dB. That would give you 3 dB beam width. So this is how you can define the beam width, or you can measure the beam width from transmitted antenna. This is my answer to this question from Davedara. Then Priyank Patel has which antenna material used? I have tried to reply dielectric resonator. I do not have much idea about this dielectric resonator, but as I said, resonance is the basic phenomena for antenna structure, because antenna equivalent circuit is basically a resonant circuit. It's nothing more than that, nothing less. It is a resonant circuit. If you read a book by Jordan and Balmain, Antenna, chapter number 11, you would have a very decent explanation of antenna as a narrowband device, right? How are we making it wideband? We are not making it wideband, we keep it narrowband only, but we are forming a beam with the help of phase shift given to different antennas. It is an antenna array only. An antenna array would be manipulating the beam. Direction of beam is manipulated by changing the phase of the incoming carrier to the antenna. And this is how you would be controlling the beam width. Okay. I think we may send some questions by email. Then what must be the gain requirement of antenna design 5G? Okay. as I said, we are okay with a total SNR of 15 dB. So gain is not supposed to be very high. Anywhere between 5 dB to 10 dB is acceptable. It is acceptable, right?
I think, sorry to interrupt you, sir.
Okay.
Is Samir Mansoori available? Because I think you have an appointment around 12:30 or engagement somewhere. So we can conclude this session, sir. We'll
Okay,
send
okay,
you
because it is
the
already
question.
12:24. Yeah, it is
Yeah, yeah, sir.
12:24. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can send it on my email. I would try to reply all the questions, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Samir, are you available?
Hello, Priyank sir. Priyank sir.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay.
Good afternoon, sir. It was indeed a
Good
very
afternoon.
insightful. It was indeed a very insightful webinar on evolution of wireless network and the technicalities and challenges related to 5G network. So it was really a privilege to learn from Dr. Kiran Parmar, sir. So as always, you have always inspired us with your knowledge and wisdom. I'm sure that all the students and faculties would incorporate the learnings of this webinar in their future endeavors. And we would like to thank our HOD sir, Parekh sir, for his valuable guidance and support. Because of his encouragement and push only, we all were able to arrange such a nice webinar in such a short duration. And we are also very thankful to N9 Solution, a leading manufacturer of electrical control panels and SCADA software products, for providing us the technical platform to accommodate such a large audience and conducting this webinar. I also extend my gratitude to all the participant faculties and students to spare your valuable time and encourages. And at the end, I am thankful to all the faculty members, especially Nitin sir, Priyank sir, and all other faculty members to make this webinar happen. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so with this, we would end this seminar.
We request all the guests to just disconnect the meeting. Thank
Yes,
you all.
yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.